Hey everyone, welcome. Welcome, thanks for being here. My name is Kate McGuire and I'm the interim superintendent for Anoka-Hennepin Schools. I'm going to provide some introductory information and then I'm going to introduce Dr. Mary Wolverton, Associate Superintendent for Elementary Schools, and Greg Cole, Chief Operations Officer. They'll be providing some details on the proposals and talk a little bit about how community members can provide feedback. And I'll begin tonight with the end in mind, which is why are we here? And that is that we need to make some attendance area boundary adjustments at the elementary level throughout the district and at the middle school level in the Blaine High School cluster. This meeting we will also share proposed boundaries for Franklin Elementary families next year, and I want to be clear that we are not proposing changes at the high school level at this time. In Anoka-Hennepin generally, in long-established neighborhoods, we have fewer students, while schools in rapidly growing areas have many more. Most of our schools are clustered in the older neighborhoods in the southern two-thirds of the district, and a few schools are located in the northern third, which is now the fastest growing area of the district, specifically in Blaine and Ramsey. The student population around some of our schools is declining, and on the other hand, the student growth in some areas is exploding. The growth in some of our communities is both exciting and challenging for us because we have to ensure a high-quality learning environment across all of our schools. When schools are overcrowded, teaching and learning is impacted. And I just want to share some information about what that looks like because it's easy to say our schools are crowded. It's very difficult. So I want to paint a picture of what that looks like when we say our schools are crowded. One of our schools is so crowded that they can't use their full media center properly because it's being divided for classrooms. One of our elementary schools is so crowded that they don't have a classroom for every teacher, so those teachers move from room to room on a rolling cart. Some of our schools may not have enough spaces with small groups to conduct instruction with students who need intervention support, and sometimes that intervention or support is provided in hallways or atriums. Restrooms, lunchrooms, and other common areas may be crowded in some schools. Small schools with low enrollment are impacted in other ways. They may have so few students that class size ratios may be above or below estimated ratios. Sometimes programming is impacted as well. So for example, Sunrise Elementary, some of our students are provided kindergarten programming at Johnsville Elementary. As a result, attendance boundary changes will need to be made at the elementary level and at 2 Blaine cluster middle schools in order to balance enrollment across the district. So tonight, we'll share information about the process, the timeline that we'll be using, some parameters that we used in shaping the proposals that you'll see tonight. We'll share information about transition plans, how will we move students if we have to move students, and then information about feedback opportunities for community members. In order to help you feel well informed, once we're done sharing information, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. Staff members will be stationed around the room near the maps and near the computers to answer questions and to assist you with providing your feedback, which will be collected electronically. We appreciate that you're here tonight to get the facts and to share your perspectives. We know through our annual community survey and from student feedback that families feel very connected to their schools and to their teachers. It's part of what makes boundary changes so difficult. You'll hear more tonight about the work to ensure a similar educational opportunity at all of our schools. And to share more information, I'm going to introduce Dr. Mary Wolverton, who's our Associate Superintendent for Elementary Schools.
Thank you, Dr. McGuire. In our boundary update, this is aligned to a board strategic priority 3.3. The boundary adjustment process is an action step to ensure efficient operations of district facilities and programs. Anoka-Hennepin like all school districts, must periodically make changes to balance student enrollment to ensure that all students have the opportunity to receive comparable educational experiences. The new attendance boundaries will go into effect the start of the 2023-24 school year. That means the process has to start now to appropriately inform stakeholders and set up operations. The school board will be making the final decision at the proposals at meetings in November. They would like your feedback prior to decision making. Details on how to do this will be shared this evening. In looking at this visual here, this timeline provides a quick glance at the process and timeline we will be going through. This is the timeline in place for the boundary adjustment process. The district is sharing the initial proposals by high school cluster now and accepting feedback. A presentation of all proposals will be shared at the September 26th school board meeting. Feedback provided tonight and prior to the meeting will also be shared with the school board for their consideration. The district is planning a second round of community meetings to gather additional feedback on potential refined proposals before a recommendation to the school board at the November 7th school board meeting. The board is expected to take action to approve the updated boundaries at the November 21st school board meeting. The district will then inform families impacted by any boundary adjustments in December, and the boundaries would be in effect next fall. As we consider the boundary process and we consider the parameters, proposals are designed with the goals listed here in mind. We consider the teacher-student ratio established by the school board through the budget process, which determines adequate space. We also strive to maintain lower class size ranges at the elementary schools, most notably kindergarten and first grade. And this also supports us with ensuring educational supports and programming is based on the students' demographics of the attendance boundary. At this time, I would like to introduce Greg Cole, our Chief Operations Officer.
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, everybody. Additional parameters with regard to decision making that we take into account before we propose boundary changes would be to ensure all students have the opportunity to receive comparable educational experiences throughout our district. So at the elementary level with our 26 elementary schools, similar curriculum, similar experiences. We want to ensure that regardless of the elementary school that you attend in Anoka-Hennepin, you get a quality education. Following state guidelines and statutes, and then using our district resources efficiently. So that's evaluating our spaces to ensure that they're not overcrowded or that they're not underutilized. In addition to that, trying to design, our transportation department works very hard to design bus rides of reasonable lengths, and that's directly tied to our boundaries. So obviously if a boundary puts someone on an outlier, that bus ride may be exceptionally long for them, and we want to avoid that for our children, particularly our younger kids. Facilitate walking to school for students living within a mile of their school. If there are hazards present on the route. So sometimes you might have a family who lives very close to a school, but they have to go across a very busy street. In those cases, we provide transportation to those students, but we want to ensure that we maximize walking routes for our students who live close to their schools. And then we want to ensure that our boundaries are contiguous and adjoining where possible to minimize disruptions and ensure efficiencies. So in some cases, it's not true in the Anoka cluster, but we have it in a different cluster. You have boundaries that may be split related to school repurposing that occurred in the past. And so you're weighing bringing those together versus disrupting where students go to school, and we'll err on those. In those cases, we will try to err on the side of honoring where students currently go to school. But where we can make contiguous boundaries, we try to do that. And we want to maintain current high school attendance boundaries at this time, as Dr. Wolverton mentioned. Consider growth from current and future residential development. We try to maintain strong relationships and communications with all the communities we serve and their city officials, just to be sure that we're on top of any type of projects or growth that they anticipate in the next 5 years. And then we strive to establish boundaries to remain in effect for at least 5 years at the elementary schools and 10 years at the secondary schools. So I said 5 years. We also, if they're willing to share with us information that they can project beyond 5 years, obviously that's super helpful to us. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Wolverton to start showing you some maps.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. This map here shows you the current boundaries in the Anoka cluster, and these are the existing boundaries. In the Anoka cluster, there are only 3 schools that will be impacted by proposed boundary changes: Ramsey Elementary, Franklin Elementary, and Lincoln Elementary. There are no recommendations, as well as noted previously, for any boundary changes for the middle school or for Anoka High School.
So what are we proposing? So just to help you understand this map, in yellow, well, let me back up. So part of this is the repurposing of Franklin Elementary School, and basically what we've determined, if you see the dotted line is the current Franklin Elementary School attendance boundary. So to minimize disruptions, we wanted to ensure all the parameters that I spoke of before, things like bus rides. We also try not to break up neighborhoods. There's a lot of things that we try to discuss to ensure that we're minimizing impact. So essentially, the proposal in this case would be to take the students from Franklin Elementary School. Franklin's located here. And you see the dotted line that represents its current boundary, and essentially have some of those students go to Ramsey Elementary School and some of those students go to Lincoln Elementary School. So in this scenario, the proposed boundary for Ramsey Elementary School is in yellow, and the proposed boundary for Lincoln Elementary School is in pink. Kind of some physical features here. To the south, you have the Mississippi River. You have the Rum River that heads essentially north-south. To the east of the Rum River in pink, you see that is the proposed Lincoln Elementary School boundary. Obviously to the north of the Mississippi is Lincoln and Ramsey. And then to the west of the Rum River, all the way up to McDonald's on Highway 10, which is right near Fair Oak. That is the proposed boundary. I will note for folks, and we're going to have this changed immediately, this current divide between the two isn't accurate as it's drawn. So the actual boundary is a little bit to the east, and if you take the northwest side of McDonald's, so this is kind of a unique boundary. Boundaries aren't always drawn by roads. So this particular boundary we're proposing doesn't follow a road. Essentially what it does is it attempts to not break up neighborhoods. So the closest you would have are people who back up to each other. Okay, so there's neighborhoods essentially to the northwest on the north side of Fair Oak, and the line goes from McDonald's and it kind of zigzags its way down to a park on the Mississippi River, and that line separates 2 different neighborhoods. So it's essentially more in here where my finger is as the line's drawn. We will get that out to folks as soon as possible so that if you live in this area and you have any kind of concerns, you'll be able to see the difference between the 2. Okay. So as soon as possible, you'll be able to check here, check out the boundaries website for maps, which will include the current and proposed attendance boundaries, and that's at ahschools.us/boundaries. I'll turn it back over to Dr. Williams.
Thank you. So once the board makes their decision at our November 21st school board meeting, then centrally what we will begin to do is work together as a team in relation to supporting students and families with any potential transitions. School administration will collaborate within each cluster to develop and implement transitions for students and families who may be moved to a new site for the 2023-24 school year. One aspect about our Anoka-Hennepin School District, and that is a strength, is that all of our schools offer the same curriculum and programs, so that greatly supports our students and our families with any potential transitions. One of our goals is, as we're interacting with the community, is we would also like to reach out and provide additional information. If you need more information or have additional questions, information is noted on the district website. Also, if you have questions, please reach out by email. This presentation will also be posted on the district website after our meeting tonight. At this time, as we end our community presentation, we would like to encourage staff that, families that are present tonight. If you would like to interact with any of our staff that are here, we have a number of representatives from various departments. Before I introduce them, I would first like to introduce several of our school board members that are here this evening. Board Chair Marcy Anderson, Board Representative Casey DeShane, and Board Representative Erin Harris-McCardle. And as we end the meeting, we have, as noted, we have various maps that are up that you can look at. We have staff here from the Transportation Department, if they can raise their hands. And we have staff from our Information Services Department and Communications Department. There is, I think, maybe 4 here as well. And our elementary principals in the Anoka cluster are all here this evening as well. It is our opportunity. We are here to interact with you and answer any questions we can. Again, a reminder, please go on our website, email us if you have additional questions, as well as consider looking at the frequently asked questions that are on the website. Thank you.